What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast. I am so grateful that you are all here listening with me today. It means the world that you're willing to tune in each week to hear the stories and lessons of resilience from every single person that I bring onto my show every week. So again, if you're not already a part of the tribe, I invite you to like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to. And if you haven't already, please make sure to give us a review as well and let us know all of the appreciation that you share for the wonderful guests that I bring on, again, on a weekly basis. Everyone, I cannot wait to introduce my guest that I have today. She is truly a phenomenal woman. She is so resilient. She has such a beautiful story that I know she is going to share with all of us today. And I just cannot wait to bring her on. So I'm going to do it. All right. Oh, and before I do that, actually, I have one invite for you. As you are listening to this episode today, please be mindful of someone that you know that could benefit from the lessons and the story shared from my wonderful guest today, and please share it with them. Please let them know that you care about them, that you're thinking about them, and that you want to help them by providing the tools that this amazing client or guest is going to share with you all today. So without further ado, my phenomenal guest by way of introduction is a wonderful mother of 5 sons. She is also a wife to an amazing husband. She is a seeker of truth. She is a healer. She is someone who underwent stage 4 metastatic cancer. Through chemotherapy, her organs shut down, and then she found what she calls God's medicine and ended up becoming free of cancer. And I'm so excited to hear that story today. So without further ado, we are going to bring Lynette Hill. Is that right? Lynette Hill onto the show today?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me and being here.
Lynette, thank you so much for your time coming on today. So for those that are listening, I actually had someone else who was planned today, and she ended up having to cancel. And this guest, Lynette, was able to come on very last minute with about an hour's notice. She is prepped and ready to go. So she is a godsend. She is a blessing. So Lynette, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't begin to express my appreciation for you. Just so the audience and I get to know you a little bit better, can you please share with us just some cookie cutter answers as to who you are?
So again, my name is Lynette. Thank you for having me. I was actually born on a little tiny island in Dominica, but I've been here since I was a child. And this is a great country. Dominica is a beautiful place. If you've never been, it's the little island of Dominica, not the Dominican Republic. And it was actually one of the places that was just voted for having the most centurions because they live such a healthy lifestyle. And I came here, went to school, got married, had children. And then in July of 2021, my life turned upside down. And then we'll go over that. But I'm just grateful to be here.
Lynette, again, thank you so much for being here. That's so cool. So so I was terrible at geography. Where is Dominique?
That's okay. So was I. So if you look at the tip of Florida and you go south, it's all the sister islands that are in the Caribbean, like Barbados, Haiti. All of those places are all in that same area.
Oh, that's so cool. And at what
Yes.
age did you come over to the mainland?
Oh, I was young. I was about 6.
Okay, cool. That's really cool.
Yes.
So yeah, let's dive right in, Miss Lynette. I want to know so much about you. So take us back to a young Lynette Hill. When were some of the first times that you noticed you were struggling with mental health?
Well, that's a great question. I was in the islands. There's a tradition, a lot of people do it, where the child is left with the grandparents and the parents actually leave to go to another island to find work or whatever it is, and then they'll come back and get you. So I was left with my grandmother at a young age and honestly didn't know that I didn't have another mother because my grandmother was it. And then when my mom got sponsored to come to this country, she came back to Dominica with more kids in tow who I didn't know who they were. And she said, "I'm your mom and we're going to America." And I'm like, no, I don't know who you are. And so, of course, I went kicking and screaming to this country. We ended up being in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, after we left Dominica because we had to wait for the proper paperwork and all of that to be done. And my grandparents were, if there was a perfect couple, they were the perfect couple. And he worshiped the ground she walked on. And my mom and dad were so different. Unfortunately, my dad was an alcoholic and I just watched abuse constantly. So at a very young age, I understood trauma and I understood what it was like to walk on eggshells every day. So it was a very, very trying time for me. And just growing up in that household, in that environment, was very hard. So mental health became something very real for me.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I can't imagine how difficult that was for you.
Yeah.
What, how did that shape your life as you grew up, walking on the eggshells and knowing the abuse?
It was a huge part of my life, but I'm grateful to say that it was one of those things that you could either take a situation and go that same route, or you could decide I'm going to do something different. And so it made me very empathetic towards other people. It made me very caring, but it also made me a people pleaser, and that's not always good because you want that approval. You want people to like you because you didn't feel that you were liked or loved in your home situation. So it really shapes who you are. And a lot of times you don't realize how much it shapes who you are until you're forced into things that make you look inside. And then you realize that, oh, it's from this trauma. Oh, it's from this trauma. So it does shape your life.
Yeah, that absolutely does. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing. I really appreciate that. I think that's all really important. So let's move on to the next question here. I would love, because I know this is a big part of your journey. Let's talk about your heroine's journey. So for those just getting, or for those just learning about this, the heroine's journey or the hero's journey is essentially a hard trial, extreme trial, a pivotal moment in someone's life where ultimately through this, they have to really take a look at themselves deep down and they come out of it better than who they were. So Lynette, please share with us your heroine's journey.
So I was diagnosed in July of 2021 with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And if I could just back up for a moment, you mentioned in the introduction that I was a mom to 5 amazing sons. So the only time I was in the hospital was when I gave birth to my children. I had no comorbidities. I was never in and out of doctor's offices. I was never in and out of hospitals. I was really a healthy person. And then a few days leading up to my diagnosis, all of a sudden, and not to gross out your viewers, but I couldn't go to the bathroom. And that was not like me. I was like, well, that's something's wrong. So my sister's a nurse and my son's a nurse. And so I called my son and I said, hey, I can't go to the bathroom. And he's like, oh, mom, sometimes when people get older, they get impacted and, your body changes. Go to Walgreens, pick this up. And I did. And it flushed me out. But a couple days later, I still couldn't go to the bathroom. And I thought, no, I know my body. Something's wrong. And so it was a weekend. I went to urgent care. And this is where I say that God was in every part of my journey. Because when I went to urgent care, it was during COVID. Everybody's masked up, it's packed in there. And the doctor asked me, what's going on? I said, I can't go to the bathroom. And he said the same thing my son said. Oh, you know what? When we get older, things change. I'm 60. I take Metamucil every day. So he started to write me a prescription for constipation. And he stopped when he was writing it. And he said, let's just take a look at your records, make sure nothing else is going on. And he saw I was never sick, never had any issues. So he decided to do blood work. And before urgent care closed that night, he called me and he said, you need to go to your primary doctor immediately. You cannot wait a month. You cannot wait 2 months. You need to go right away. And I asked him if he could tell me what's going on. And he said, I've sent all the information to your primary doctor. So Monday morning, I call my primary doctor and it's COVID, right? So she says, I'm sorry, we don't have any appointments for another 3 or 4 months. And I said, oh, no, no, no. The urgent care doctor told me I don't have 3 or 4 months. I need to come in right away. So she didn't have any appointments. So I hung up. Again, God, my daughter-in-law happened to work in that office. I called my daughter-in-law. I said, Rose, I can't get in to see the doctor. This is what the urgent care doctor told me. She says, oh, no, Mom, you're going to get in here today. She rearranged the doctor's schedule. Sorry for anyone who was moved that day, but I got to go in at 11:30. The doctor ran all his tests because he wanted to do his own thing. About 7:30 in the evening, about a week or so later on a Friday evening, he calls me and I told my husband, the doctor never calls after hours, something's wrong. So he said to me, Lynette, I'm sorry, your test came back and you have cancer. And the reason you couldn't go to the bathroom, you have a 12-centimeter mass on your ovaries that's pushing against your colon that's not allowing you to use the bathroom. And at that point, I felt like we just got hit by a Mack truck. And that was the beginning of my journey.
Oh my goodness, what a way to start your journey. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And I love that you see God in these details, right? I think that's so incredibly important. So tell
Yes.
Lynette, let's keep going with the story. What happens? You get hit by the Mack truck and then what?
And then because I never knew medication, my body never knew medication, not even Tylenol. I was just healthy for the most part. And I immediately started chemotherapy. They said, you got to start chemotherapy. I went to the doctor and they told my husband and my family, she doesn't have long because this is not a good prognosis, but we're going to try to give her a quality of life. And even they didn't believe that because they already had me scheduled for palliative care and then hospice comes after that. So I immediately started chemo and my body went into a spiral. Every side effect listed pretty much was me. I got the vomiting, the diarrhea, the dry mouth, the mouth sores. That was so bad I couldn't eat. I lost 111 pounds in just a few short months. I looked like one of those kids on a National Geographic magazine that was just skin and bones, no hair, eyes gray, stomach distended because I had liquid just growing in my stomach. And it was in my breast, my lungs, stomach, 12-centimeter mass on my ovaries, and in my bones. And it was just not good. But I spiraled. I had to go in constantly to the hospital for blood transfusion, for hydration. November of 2021, almost 6 months into taking chemotherapy, I was rushed to ICU because my blood pressure was 60/40. My organs were starting to shut down. And because it was COVID, my husband couldn't come with me. So here I'm going to die by myself, looking at a stranger I'd never seen before. But again, God, because the doctor started yelling, I need 2 pints of hydration, 2 pints of blood. And the nurse, whoever she was, said, well, let me see if we could put in an order so we could get this. And he looked at her and he says, does she look like she can wait for an order? I need it stat. And I feel like because it was COVID and because this doctor was on call, if it was another doctor that followed protocol, I probably wouldn't be here. So again, God in the details. And I ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks after that incident. And when I came home, I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. My husband's changing my diapers because I learned that when your body's shutting down, it only goes to protect your organs that it needs, and your legs doesn't matter. And my oncologist told me because I wasn't in an accident, physical therapy will help me start walking again. But in the meantime, I'm going through this ordeal and I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking, this cannot be my life. I go from a healthy mom, wife, working woman, and I'm laying in bed, bedridden. My husband's changing my diapers, and that's when, in that moment, I said to God, "There has to be a better way. There has to be something different."
Yeah. Wow. I don't even have words. That is so heart-wrenching. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. So I do want to take it back a little bit, and I have one question that keeps coming to mind. For how healthy you were, did you feel like a lot of the healthiness that you had came from some of the food habits that you took from Dominique when you were a young child?
Yes, I believe that absolutely. But I'm glad you asked that question because one of the things that people that know me well, especially my children, my husband was so surprised, is because I was a vegetarian for 30 years. I ate healthy. I did what I thought was the right thing. And then I read a book called Time Bomb by Joe Horn. And it will make you mad if you ever read it because it talks about all of the things that's in our foods. So here I am going to the store thinking I'm doing the right thing, buying my fruits and vegetables, trying to be healthy, when for 30 years I was eating pesticide laden foods because I wasn't buying organic. So I don't know if that's what caused my cancer, but I've wrecked my brain what would happen because we all have cancer cells in our body except it lays dormant until it doesn't. So what exasperates it? What makes it not dormant anymore? Is it what we're eating? Is it stress? Is it, so many different questions I had. But when I read that book, I thought, wow, so for 30 years, I was just eating my fruits and vegetables laced with pesticides. And so, yeah, but yeah, and I think one of the easier things for me to go back to eating natural, but making sure it was organic because of the lifestyle that we had in Dominica.
That's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to ask you a deeper question as well. As you're going through this really hard journey where you're losing the weight, you're having to rely on your husband, you're being told these prognoses that are just life altering. What stories were those confirming about you? As a young child, right, we gain these stories, right? I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, I'm unwanted, right? These things was any of that confirming those stories in you as you were going through this journey?
Some of it was, but mainly I think it was my own inner self asking. I never asked God why, but I did ask, am I being punished for something? And because I did something wrong, or because, however I live my life, did I make bad choices? Am I being punished for something that I did? It was never a question about God, because I don't believe God gives us illnesses, but it's how we view ourselves. And I really had to wrestle with that. But then I knew that God loved me, and that the love that we seek really is from God, and everything else pales in comparison. So I really leaned on that a lot. And I think because I had a good relationship with God, and I feel like that's why He led me to the natural medicines that I call God medicines, that ultimately caused my healing.
That's amazing. And I'm so excited to get into that. I do have one more question for you. What did that process look like to let go of the ideology of a God that made you sick, that was punishing you? What did that look like to let go of that, to then lean towards a God, or, an idea of God that was, He loves me fully and embraces me?
So for me, I never felt like this was from God. I don't feel like God gives us illnesses. I think we get illnesses because of our environment, our stress levels, our traumas, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I always knew that God stands with us in the storm. God said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. So I always knew He was there, but I had to get past my own mental block and just know that God loves me no matter what, and He accepts me right where I am. And so that part, just getting rid of the negativity, was the part for me that I had to get rid of.
I love that. And that actually leads perfectly into my next question about coping skills. So I would love to hear about some of the coping skills that you developed early on in your process and how they've developed up until this point.
So for me, words matter. People say sticks and stones can break my bones, but words don't hurt me. Words can hurt, and words matter. And the words we speak to ourselves matter the most, because we are always thinking, well, what are we thinking? Are we thinking positive, or are we thinking negative? So I've learned, because of my past trauma, to always try and speak positive to myself. I saw a really cool video the other day of a gentleman talking about how we're made up of over 75% water. And they had this experiment where they actually spoke to water, negative and positive words, and then froze that water and then highlighted it so you could see the water icicles and how they changed. And it was amazing to see, when you speak positive words, what happens. And so through the years, and it's been a long process of just coming to a place where I'm so comfortable with who I am, and I love who I am, that I could speak positive all the time. And interestingly enough, I found a video of me 2 months into my diagnosis, where I was literally speaking life to myself. I was telling myself, you are healed, you have no illness, you're cancer free, and this journey is going to be used for God's glory. And this was them telling me I'm going to die, but I'm speaking the complete opposite of what they're telling me. So it is a process, but it's something that you have to do, especially if you want healing.
Absolutely. And I love that you talk about the story of freezing the water crystals. I was introduced to that a long time ago from a book called What the Bleep Do You Know About Water? And it
Ah,
talks about an old doctor who did, he did that stuff and he would expose the water to Mozart and heavy metal and the Beatles. And it's crazy how different water crystals can be just based off of the words that you put into them.
yes.
And I remember as a young child, and if, for those listening, I actually invite you, if you've got kids, to do this with them. My mom got two mason jars that were the same exact size, and she put the same exact amount of rice and water in each one of them, sealed them shut, put them in the same spot. And on one, she put on tape love, and on the other tape hate, and she put them on the jar. And every single day for a month, we as kids, anytime we cross those jars, we would be loving on the love jar. You're so beautiful, you're pretty, your water is crystal clear, you're sweet. And to the hate jar, we would be like, you're ugly, you're gross, you're stupid, and all of those things. And over the course of the month, the love jar, the water in the mason jar actually got, it almost looked crystallized. It was so pure. And the hate jar got brown and mucky and gross. And when we opened them up, the murky, gross one obviously smelled like death. And the love jar, the rice smelled sweeter. So I
Wow.
am a huge believer in what you're talking about.
I've heard of that experiment before, but I've never met someone that actually went through it. That's amazing. I'm glad to know that that's actually a true experiment.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
amazing.
It's true and it's real. And the words we use are so incredibly impactful, and the thoughts we think
Wow.
too. So, no, sorry, I don't want to take this from you because you're sharing some really beautiful truths here, Lynette. You told us what it looked like. Then how is that? How has the self-talk evolved over time?
It's just become more of who I am. And I think more so too because of this journey I went through and the healing that God gave me through his medicines. It's also given me a new set of eyes because I've always been someone that loves people, that's empathetic, and I never care who they are, what color they are. That never mattered to me. But going through this journey, it's, how do I explain it? It's like God has heightened my sixth senses. Like I would hear the birds sing, but now I hear the birds sing. And it's like they're singing to me. And now I pause and I look like, oh, you're singing to me. And I'm just very in tune with everything. And I think a lot of that is too when I was going through this journey and my husband was changing my diapers and he tried to stay busy all the time. He would go to Home Depot and, to buy things. And no one in that line knew that this man just got through changing his wife's diapers and was begging for God to save her life. And it just made me appreciate when I go places or see someone, we don't know what thunderstorm they're under. We don't know what they're going through. And the phrase that you hear all the time about kindness matters and kindness doesn't cost anything, just to make eye contact with someone and say, hey, how are you doing? Matters so much. And so it's just the whole thing has evolved me. And I think that, like I said, God doesn't give you illnesses, but he said what was meant for evil will be used for your good. It's made me such a better person than I was even before. And I'm actually grateful for this journey, as crazy as that sounds.
That's amazing. And I'm so grateful you have that appreciation for the journey. And I would love to talk about that. I want to talk more about some of God's medicines that you've talked about, because I feel like when I, so tell us more about some of these God's medicines, some of these coping skills that you've
So
used.
when I was bedridden and I knew that chemo was killing me, some people call it the Holy Spirit. I call it that. Some people call it intuition, gut instinct, whatever it is. But I knew in my spirit, just for me, not giving anybody medical advice, that if I continued with chemo, that my husband was going to bury me because I knew it was killing me. So I knew I had to do something else. And so since I was bedridden, I thought, well, I will just research and see what's out there. So I literally started with one search, people that heal their cancer. That's all I put in there. And then it leads you to different links, to different videos, to different things. And it really upset me, to be honest, because there are so many things out there that can help with our healing, but we're not told about it. And one of the things I read about was turkey tail mushroom. There was a guy that did a video that his mom was sent home to die, and he was desperate to save his mom, and he read about turkey tail mushroom, and it says take 2 capsules a day. He was giving her 5 capsules in the morning, 5 capsules in the evening because she had nothing to lose. 5 years later, he brings her up on stage. She's perfectly fine and cancer free. So there was all of these things, but the things that I was led to was the soursop tea, and maybe because we have that in the island and people drink it for medicinal reasons, black seed oil and apricot kernels. There's a book called World Without Cancer, all about apricot kernels. It has so many medical studies to it, but it's so suppressed here. But when you look on our very own NIH website, it talks about apricot kernels and soursop seeds causing apoptosis in the cancer cells. It literally kills cancer cells in mice, but they never went to human trials. And you and I are smart enough to know why they didn't go to human trials, because God forbid we heal ourselves. And so after much research, days, hours, weeks, because like I said, I was bedridden, had nothing to do. I literally said this to God. You said in the Bible that the leaves were for the healing of the nations. You said that the fruit and the seed within it is meat for man. You said that every herb was created for the benefit of man. I literally held God to his word and said, I'm going to stop every chemo, every treatment, and I'm going to go natural. And I decided to do that at the height of my illness. Within 3 months, I knew that it was working. I told my husband, it's the little things that matter. I said, I can go poop. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I said, I could go to the bathroom by myself, no aid, right? As far as like not fiber and Metamucil and all that kind of stuff, I could literally go to the bathroom. But because you don't know what's going on inside of your body, it was 3 months later that I had my scan, and she said, your 12 centimeter mass on your ovaries is gone. 6 months later, when I had my next scan, she says, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it because you have no more cancer in your body. And this is from the same oncologist that said I only had months to live. So that was in February of 2023 was my 1 year scan. I told my doctor then, because I hadn't told her before, I said, doctor, I have not had chemo, and I went natural using God's medicines. And she looked at me. So when I had my scan this past January 2024, my oncologist called me into the office and she said, I have to confess that you're upending everything I know. And I said, what do you mean? She says, we give you a protocol and you take this protocol for so many years until you're either in remission, because that's what we want. We don't want you to die. But she says, we tell people when you stop this protocol within 3 to 6 months, your cancer will come back with a vengeance, and then there's nothing we could do. She said, the fact that you stopped your protocol 6 months into your journey, she says, your scan, when it came out clear, I thought that's perfect. That must have been a fluke. She says, but your January 24th scan, she says, I knew your tumor was going to start growing back. I knew you were going to have cancer. I knew something was going to be going on. So for you to have another clear cancer scan, she kind of just threw her hands up and said, I don't even know what to say. And I told her, but God, because it's all God. But she's a scientist. They're not going to give credit to God, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Wow. That is so amazing and such a fast turnaround.
Yeah.
And I can imagine there were some highs and some lows through that whole
Oh my
3
gosh,
and
yes.
6 months. When you first decided to go off, and after all of this research, those first 3 months, what was a day-to-day routine for you going natural?
So I started only eating organic things. I didn't eat a lot of meat because I'm not really a meat person. Even when I was little, I never really liked a lot of meat. But I will eat organic chicken, once a week, lots of fruit smoothies. A lot of people tell me, well, we're told to stay away from fruit because it has sugar in it. I said, no, fruit is natural sugar, and fruit is the easiest things for our bodies to process. And I did, beans, of course, fruits and vegetables, lots of water. And people talk about, buying alkaline water when you're going through cancer because you need that alkaline. But people don't know, a lot of people don't know. If you take just a pinch of baking soda and put it in your water, it alkalines your water, and you don't need to spend a lot of money on alkaline water. And it does so much more for your body. So those were the things that I was doing, just making sure that I ate healthy and that I stayed away from processed foods, stayed away from fast foods completely, stayed away from processed sugars because it's the sugar that attracts the cancer, the glucose. And so you want to stay away from that. But yes, it was highs and lows for sure, but the highs were getting better than the lows. The lows for me was going through the chemo treatment. That was the worst thing I ever went through.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that's so cool. Thank you. You know, there's so many instances where people have talked about, just in my life, baking soda, right? Putting it in your bath,
Yeah.
putting it in your water,
Yes.
putting it on your food. It's crazy how amazing baking soda is.
And it's cheap because God's medicine should not break the bank. It's just, yeah.
I love that. What are some other God's medicines?
So the soursop tea, the black seed oil, and the apricot kernels is what I did consistently
Mhm,
because they not only kill cancer cells,
mhm.
but they also are parasitic cleaners. So old people used to call it worms. When I was little, they would give you castor oil or cod liver oil every 6 months, and they would say, "This is for the worms." And we thought they were crazy because it was just disgusting, but we were always healthy. That combination of things is all I took through my healing journey, and it's what I take today for prevention because I never want to go through that again.
And
So
how
just clean eating and those things.
and the apricot seeds, the oils, how often are you taking those, or were you taking them on a daily basis, or like was
I
it
was, as a
daily?
matter of fact, I'm drinking my soursop tea right now.
It's awesome.
So I drink a cup of soursop tea in the morning, a cup of soursop tea in the evening, and soursop tea also has sleeping agents. A lot of people in the island use it for that because it really knocks you out. And then the apricot kernels, I take one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. And then the black seed oil, a teaspoon in the morning and a teaspoon in the evening.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And has that been the routine that you've had since you started doing it?
Yes, it's what I did from the very beginning when I made that decision to stop medication, and I do it to this day.
And how long doing that before you started noticing a difference in you internally?
Within 3 months, I would say I started to notice a difference. Well, I would say within a month because my appetite started coming back. But within 3 months, I knew for sure it was working because of how I was feeling and the clarity of mind. I wasn't so bogged down with the medication. It was just getting that out of my system, and it took months. And even now, to be honest, because chemo hurts your body just so much, I still have like neuropathy in my fingers and just atrophy in my body because of just the harshness of it. So when people have told me they went through, so many rounds of chemo and then radiation and then surgery and all, I can't even imagine. They're stronger than me. I couldn't do it. And I opted no radiation, no surgery. I was done. And I think, to be honest, if chemo wasn't so horrible for me, I might have done more or whatever, but it was just I couldn't. I had to stop.
Well, good on you. And you're thriving now, which is so
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
Thank heavens. So, and I know you touched on this a little bit, but I want to bring in the question formally, appreciation for the journey. So, Miss Lynette, looking back at all of the hardships and all of the struggles that you had to go through, what do you appreciate about what you've been through?
I appreciate that God is no respecter of persons and that he's there to heal anyone, but it has to start in the mind. You have to believe for your healing. You could do all the natural medicines, you could do the great clean eating, but if you don't believe for your healing, it's not going to happen. And I wanted to share my journey with people and just to let them know that God's medicine exists. So I decided to post it on my YouTube. YouTube immediately took it down for medical disinformation. They asked me if I wanted to appeal it, and I did. And I said, this is my own personal journey. I even say in the video, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just sharing my story. They still took it down, gave me a strike. Um, I posted on Facebook, Instagram, they took it down. So somebody told me, put it on TikTok. TikTok doesn't censor as much, and they don't have the fact checker thing on the bottom. It's just your journey. I put it on TikTok and I just prayed about it and told God, this is your journey now. So, I mean, my life is yours. You pulled me from death's door. Every day of my life belongs to you now. This is your journey. Do with it what you like. I put it on TikTok. I got up in the morning and had over 1 million views. And it's now at 3.5 million views and growing. So someone on Twitter, I don't know who, it was a large account, got my story and shared my video. It went 500,000 views overnight. Epoch Times saw it, called me and did an interview with me. Chris Beat Cancer, Chris Walk team called me and did an interview. And Defender Publishing, the publishing company, it publishes people like Jonathan Kahn, Stephen Quayle, they called me and they said, for someone to stop their chemo at the height of their illness and trust God's medicine, your story needs to be told. So I just signed a publishing deal with them in October of last year, and my book is coming out in June. And it's just, I would never have wanted to go through cancer, but what God is using through this journey for his glory, I'm here for it.
That is absolutely amazing, Lynette. Congratulations
Thank you
on
so much.
on the ability to share that story so humbly. That's
Thank you.
amazing. And to those people just getting into the realm of mental health, what advice do you have for those people?
To let them know that they are worthy. You are absolutely worthy. You are created in God's image. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And every time you look in the mirror, see God, because you are a reflection of God and you are worthy. And it takes a journey to get there. It doesn't happen overnight, but just look in the mirror and know who you are, who created you, and know that you are loved. That is the best thing that you could do. That was my saving grace. God is my saving grace.
Lynette, thank you so much for sharing that wonderful advice. I know that will bless someone. That will bless many people who listen to it. So again, thank you so much. Well, those are all the questions I have for you, Lynette. Thank you for coming on the show. For those people that have heard your story and have been just so touched as I have, how can they get in contact with you? Where can they find you? Yeah, what if you'd like to plug yourself?
So they can find me on TikTok at Lynette H59 or Speaker Lynette. It should come up both ways. On Instagram, I'm at Speaker Lynette as well. And they could message me on there. I do a lot of video calls every day with people that are going through this. I don't charge for it because this is God's journey and God will bless me. So people reach out to me all the time. But I will say this really quick. People that have reached out to me that's followed my journey, I am now getting so many testimonials because you shared your journey. I never knew about God's medicine. My brother's pancreatic cancer is gone. My mom's colon cancer is gone. My sister is in remission. I mean, all the time I'm getting stories and I'm telling God, this is why you had me go through that. So it's blessing a lot of people. So I'm grateful for that.
We're grateful for you, Lynette. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. And for those of my guests that have been here and been through this spectacular journey with me and Lynette, thank you. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here with us today to hear this whole story. If you haven't already, I please invite you to share this story. Lynette's story needs to be shared. People need to hear this story. People need to know this story. People need these lessons. So please, please, please share it with those people. And for those who want to come on this show, I want you to understand that no story is too big and no name is too small. If you have a story of resilience, I do want to share it all. So please contact me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life. If you want to know more about what I do on a day-to-day basis, please go to www.thewellnesscenter.life, where red light therapy rejuvenates every cell in your body, one session at a time. Again, thank you so much for your time, everybody. We both hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace out.